think we're just gonna stick to the plan, sir. I mean, Mr. Hackett knows we're coming and we called ahead.
No, ma'am, you're gonna head to the Harbinger Motel. Do you understand?
The Quarry is the spiritual successor to 2015's teen horror, Until Dawn. After the fantastic success and a positive critical response, developer Supermassive Games has returned to the genre with a new setting, new characters, and new, terrifying threats for the players. We sat down with several members of the team to explore their roles in bringing a scene to life. The scene we're looking at takes place in the Quarry's prologue and is our first introduction to the terrifying new character played by horror icon Ted Raimi.
The prologue kind of starts off in a really as classic an idea as we can think of, which is the kind of the Brad and Janet driving through the woods at night.
Max, we're lost.
We're in geographic flux.
Right, so, lost.
Laura and Max, who are two would-be camp counselors.
They've just had a car crash and had some different scary things happen to them.
And they're a little bit shaken.
And then a cop turns up out of nowhere.
Jeez!
Oh, fuck.
A police officer arrives to supposedly help them.
Quite a scary cop.
Now you folks want to tell me just what in the hell you are doing all the way out here this late at night?
Depending on how you play the scene and the choices that you make, the cop will react differently to you.
You're not gonna make it to Hackett's Quarry. Not tonight.
So now we know the scene, let's dive into how this was all put together. And what better place to start than with the script.
I remember reading Will's initial script. We had essentially these two camp counselors who are making their way to the camp, and it's sort of playing into the trope of the couple having car trouble in the middle of nowhere. And I think it's just playing with that in what I guess you could call a familiar situation to those who know these kind of games. But it's kind of taking it in a different direction and allowing us to play with these characters.
Are either of you injured?
No, well, she bumped her head.
Well, barely bumped it. I mean, I can't even feel it. My bump, not my head. I'm fine.
Really, we're fine. We're just a little shaken up.
So myself, Will and Graham will sort of agree on the final draft of the script, and we do it sort of in sections, and it gets sent off and sent back, and we review that. And then that goes away with Will basically to all the way to LA where they perform it, and actually they can see the tool we use, which includes the design of the game on paper in a way, and the dialogue next to it. So not only can you see the dialogue you're working with, but you can see the branches where it leads and the choices you're making.
Something jumped out.
With the words on page largely assembled, the team moved on to staging and blocking for the live performances. The Quarry, like many recent games, uses live performances from recognisable actors on a motion capture stage. But with motion capture comes a distinct lack of visual stimuli for the performers to work with, and they rely heavily on the director to help them visualise the scene.
I think we are very lucky with having Will at the helm, because that is sort of his bread and butter as well. He's a very visual thinker, and I think that has been instilled in all of us in the team, but especially in the writing process as well, is we are thinking of every scene as not a play between two characters on a stage, for example. We're thinking about the surroundings and how we want it to look and feel.
The Quarry's horror movie influence is clear to see, but this goes beyond just the scripting of horror tropes. With such a visual thinker at the helm, achieving the cinematic presentation of the genre was also a clear objective. And to create a cinematic game, you need a cinematic approach to the shooting style.
The photography and the lighting, I think, is amazing in this. We've done a thing with a very specific bunch of techniques that aren't usually used in games, are usually much more in film, but we've had to adapt it to obviously try and make it work in real time and runtime.
Essentially, it's just like any other motion capture device. We essentially put white tracker dots onto something, and then the cameras pick it up, the ones in the studio, and then it effectively knows that this is a 3D object, and it just maps that onto a 3D object, which then they attach a camera onto a little TV in front of me, so I can film it just like any real camera. There's actually no real difference other than there's no lens on the front of it, it's just being tracked. Essentially, I'm there, which means that the player is there. I'm reacting to the scene, reacting to the emotions of the characters. So for instance, in this cop scene, when Travis comes, he's coming into frame, the player probably knows that they're there, and they're shouting out, oh, he's there, and then I react with Max and Laura with a bit of a jolt, and it kind of adds to the emotion of the scene. You know, we really want to really get the emotion through that, rather than a static camera, which is beautifully composed, we actually add some life into this, and the player gets to feel some of the emotion just through the movement of the camera.
Facilitating a live camera performance also presents a unique challenge when it comes to lighting, especially when a camera has the flexibility and freedom to move to different angles.
On a traditional set, you'd light per shot, and we kind of do that, but it works best when we light as a set, as though you're watching a play, and we light it so it works from as many angles as possible, so that when I have the camera in the set, I can pretty much point it at anything, and everything that needs to be lit is lit, because we've lit it as a play almost. The way we've done it, we've made it so that, you know, there's a valid shot wherever we look.
Storytelling with handheld, live camera operation and 360-degree stage lighting were clearly important tools in creating a truly cinematic scene. But the image is only as good as the performance that you're capturing.
The actors did an incredible job on this. I really feel like the timing that Laura and Max have. When I was there at LA, just looking at those directly through the lens, it was just, yeah, it was impressive.
I thought you said you checked it.
I did check it and it was fine. Honey, I know you're on edge, but you gotta calm down, okay?
I am not on edge, Max. I'm freaking the fuck
It
out.
was probably just an animal or something.
No, it wasn't an animal. You didn't see it. It was a woman.
Laura, this isn't helping, all right?
One of the joys about working with actors is they bring stuff you have no idea that's going to happen. So the way I like to direct is to give the actors as much knowledge as possible about what their character is, about what the situation is, about what their motivation is. I know it sounds a bit cheesy about motivation, but it really makes a difference if they know what they're trying to get out of that performance. So once I've given them all that, I hit play and then just see what happens. And it's like, by and large, I mean, I've very, very rarely come across a thing where that was worse than what I thought. It's nearly always way better than what I thought it was going to be.
Despite the cinematic practice and ambitions for the Quarry, there was also the video game element to contend with, something the majority of actors simply aren't used to. Traditionally, scripts are A to B, with clear character arcs and paths, but the Quarry presents players with multiple choice and thus a variety of character responses and motivations. And directing this presented its own challenges.
We have this thing where we have this flow chart of all the scenes and all the choices and all the ways it goes and all the interactions and what we call booleans, which are scenes that have been affected by stuff that happened ages ago. All that is blocked out in a kind of very graphical way, and on set we have the script down one side, the storyboard down one side, and that whole chart. So I stand with the actors at the TV screen and go, right, okay, first one we're going to do this, but bear in mind we're going to come back and go down that route as well. So and they're really good. They kind of got it. Once they got used to this camera on their head and the suit and the weirdness of it all, they really got it quite quickly.
With all due respect, sir, why can't we go to Hackett's Quarry?
Because I told you to go to the motel.
The performances began to gel, with horror icon Ted Raimi's unsettling cop being a particular highlight.
We needed him to be immediately unnerving. Not like super scary, but really unnerving. He does this line that's just genius. When Laura says, oh no, we're just going to go to the camp, he just turns to the side there and you can see the blood on his neck, and then he turns back and he just goes, and again, one of Ted's great pauses, and he goes,
You're not going to make it to Hackett's Quarry. Not tonight.
It's like he's so good at it. It's such a brilliant line.
So while the shoot was taking place, we were busy back in the studio, sort of developing the assets and the environment as much as we can. So when we get the data back, which was smooth process thanks to our engineering team. So it was, I think, on the day we got the data back, so we integrated straight back into the game. We start putting in the cameras, the right camera cuts, the lighting, set the mood and the atmosphere, and then our animators started working on lots of like little touches to make sure that it comes across the way we want it to look.
With the scripting, performance and cinematography taking shape, the team began to work on the details of the animation. With the bulk of the character movements largely handled by motion capture performance, the animation team focused on the little details, even ones you might not even consider.
My job is to place everything in the scene and get it all looking where it needs to be, and everything is correct, and then we'll have animation and everyone go in and make it look pretty. I'm here to make sure that it's all correct and in the right places and you're seeing the right things. It's not so much adjusting the performance, but sometimes when we're placing them in the scenes, things are at different heights than when, you know, we can predict at shoot. So after Travis has left, he sort of sits in the car and watches you creepily for a while. That was something that we couldn't really simulate properly on shoot, so I have to sometimes sort of move their heights and fit them into different vehicles. So Travis's car was a lot shorter than we initially expected, so I had to push him down into the floor a bit, basically, so that his head height is correct for you.
One particular moment has Travis the creepy cop dramatically licking his pencil before marking a map. It's something that we imagine took a lot of refinement. Unfortunately, the game designer was happy to divulge in the details.
We did a lot of passes on that, basically just to make sure that it looked as creepy as possible, but it was also, we were running a lot of different facial on that to make sure that it really looked as high def as it does. So we have a tool called storyboard where we have outline all the stuff before we go to shoot, but it was just Travis licks pencils creepily or something like that, I think, so it was quite interesting to see what we got back from the performance with that. We have to tone up the performances sometimes, but it was great when it first came in. I remember putting in the data and I was like, this is horrible.
We started very early looking at dual character arcs for the character, and we thought about these personalities, and the same way that we all have different traits, and you know, nobody acts just one way all the time. So we looked at these characters and we thought, okay, well, if they're not going to act like this, how else would they act? And that's within the limits of their character. It's not like you're getting a blank canvas and expected to just make up who this person is. We know who this person is, but we want it to be sculpted by the player.
This scene features a conversation between Max, Laura and Travis, offering multiple choices for the player to steer their relationships. That presented a challenge for the team into how to add a valuable amount of flexibility within the parameters of the story they're trying to tell.
We know where the scene begins and where it ends, but the choices in between that are where we get to make our mark, really. While the prologue needs to end in some fashion in a similar way, the events within it can vary quite a lot. Obviously, we need our choices to have consequence and to feel like you're making a change to the story, so that drives a lot of what we do. We also like to make sure that there's a differentiation between the choices, so that it's a meaningful input that you have, basically. If the choices are very similar, then you know it's not a benefit to anyone in terms of feeling like you're shaping the story and changing how things progress.
I associate it with, if let's say you have some sort of discussion or argument with someone and everyone has that moment afterwards where they're thinking to themselves, oh, I wish I'd said that. I think it's giving the player the chance to step into that and think, oh, actually, what if I did answer back to the cop at that time? Where would that have taken me?
The minute that you put something like a timer on screen, you immediately have people in a different headspace, you know, in terms of making the choice around that.
With all due respect, sir, why can't we go to Hackett's Quarry?
Because I told you to go to the motel.
We've only touched the surface of the sheer volume of people and hard work it takes to bring a game like The Quarry together. But the passion and love for a scene that lasts less than 5 minutes in a game that's likely to be 100 times longer is not only impressive, but clear to see.
It's just strange to see something that I saw for so long as just words on a page come to life in a whole scene, in a whole game.
I get to see how much work each discipline puts in to bring these scenes together, and I'm still amazed. Every time I look at a scene, I'm like, wow, that really worked well.
For more on The Quarry, why not check out our preview of the game, or the first 30 minutes of the Prologue's gameplay.